Thank you. Our last presentation for today is coming from Zori. Zornitza is completing her PhD on augmented reality and how augmented reality is going to change the world of tourism. And you'll see some of the patterns that we've been discussing already. You'll see some of the gamification elements. You'll see some of the virtual reality and some of the experience. I'm just positioning myself for Nicholas to take the picture. Smile. Very good. Zori is actually doing pioneering research on augmented reality and technology, and you see some of the things that they'll be emerging in the future. So, Zori.
Thank you, Dimitrios. Good afternoon, everyone. As Dimitrios mentioned, my name is Zori, and I'm currently doing my PhD with the BU eTourism Lab. And what I'm looking at is actually the design of smartphone augmented reality browsers. Okay, I know you're tired, but in order to actually explain what this is, I want to ask you a very difficult question. And the question is, do you remember the last time you were in this new city? You were looking at this building and you thought, whoa, this is amazing. I want to know about this. But your questions, they remained unanswered. And chances are that if you think about it, you probably won't remember the situation. This happens to me all of the time. Like, for instance, here, I was in Barcelona for a conference for this Smart City World Expo, and I went out of the conference hall, and this is actually the building of the hotel where I was staying. And I had 10 minutes, and I was sitting there, and I was wondering, well, okay, so I wonder when was this building built, and why is this form, and why does it have this contour, and why on earth would they paint it red? And of course, well, I have a geoinformation background, so I always carry with me a lot of maps and a lot of guidebooks. And I have more than 300 applications on my mobile phone, so I try to find this information. But I only had 10 minutes at the time. So I said, okay, let's take a photo and I'll check it out later. And because this information is increasingly becoming more and more, and we have more information that is relevant to tourists in situations like this, it is great that now we have these devices that they provide us augmented reality. And yeah, the smartphone was literally a game changer for augmented reality because it brought this technology to the mass market. But we also have newer devices like the glasses or these augmented reality lenses that researchers started working on 2 years ago. Okay, so it quickly became this new buzzword. Everybody's talking about augmented reality, but we often don't take the time to think about it, what it means for tourism and what it means for situations like this. Well, because an augmented reality display merges physical world and virtual information, it means that in that situation, I can have immediately the answer to my questions. So I'm looking at augmented reality browsers, and they deliver these virtual bubbles or virtual annotations. And here I have one that appears in my field of view, and it says, well, this hotel was built in 1999. And then if I wondered whether if I go back to my room to take my charger, whether it will be cleaned, well, the hotel can actually start speaking to me. Well, you know what, Zori, your room is ready. And this is the Internet of Things in action. Okay, so yeah, this technology has huge implications for tourism. And you know what? One of the biggest things is that we not only have control over this virtual information that is delivered, but we now have control over the way the physical world appears to the tourists. Okay, so if I don't like how that building looks like, I can change that. And the implications are huge. It means that we no longer have this information somewhere out there. It is right in front of us where we need it. The word becomes the computer screen. The word becomes the interface to information. Okay, and there are already a number of augmented reality systems that are used to augment a number of activities, for instance, for auto and pedestrian navigation. And this is great for tourists who might be unfamiliar with the road, as it increases their sense of safety and comfort. There are plenty of systems already installed in museums, like this one in the Futuroscope Park in France, where tourists are taken on an interactive safari to see the past and future flora of the planet Earth. The future flora of the planet Earth. This was before impossible to actually see it and feel it in your hands. Okay, so when I started, we actually identified a number of activities that could be augmented with AR systems. And the main problem is that innovation most of the times doesn't come from our field. It comes from somewhere else. So we started looking into that more. And one of the problems that we face is that we actually don't know, because of that, what are the questions that tourists have? What information would they like on that display? And now you see, when we put the smartphone on top of that, we realize that this problem is actually very complex because the smartphone is very small. And we have a problem if we want to push all of this information on this small screen. But there is another challenge, that when I hold my hand like this, maybe sometimes it starts moving and shaking, and then this could degrade the experience as well. So when I started, we didn't know what are those problems that tourists experience when they work with smartphone augmented reality browsers. And it was important to know because a number of urban destinations, they already have such applications, so tourists are already using them. So what we did is we collaborated with the Geoinformation Processing unit at Enschede, at the University of Twente. And there, Dr. Corné van Elzeker, who is from the International Cartographic Association, he has developed this equipment for testing mobile maps. So we took this equipment and we asked some tourists to walk in the city center of Bournemouth and use smartphone augmented reality browsers to actually find information about specific attractions here. Okay, we specifically identified attractions that we thought would be easier to find information for instance, the Oceanarium, the Information Center, things that are critical, so to say, if we are developing augmented reality application. The equipment gives us this synchronized signal from the hands of the user, the environment that they're facing, the upper two screens, also their whole body, and what is happening on the screen of the device. And this is great because it's all synchronized in real time, and we could then analyze the data. And we got some very interesting results, which we just got accepted in a few papers. But some of the we had results such as that the movement of the annotations, it actually doesn't influence so much the experience of the tourists, and that, well, there is this general wow effect because tourists really like the idea. But the biggest problem was a surprise, because it turns out that the biggest problem the tourists experience is something actually very simple. Because when they look at the building, for instance, when we asked them to find information about the waterfront building, they couldn't associate any of the bubbles with this object. And this happened time and again. They couldn't actually associate these virtual bubbles with a specific object in their environment. Or when they did, they made mistakes. We started looking into what are the possible reasons for this, and it is out of the scope of this presentation, but we started developing these different design alternatives to try to figure out what is the best visual design and what is the best content that we should provide to tourists when we deliver these virtual annotations. Okay, and something that comes out time and again is that, well, yeah, context plays a huge part in that, because me pointing the phone towards the seat there is not the same as you pointing the phone when you're in Paris towards Eiffel Tower. So we need different information. And there are a number of factors, as you can see here, that can influence what information we need. If we can somehow detect what are those factors, this is the basis of context awareness. So we use this information to actually adapt the interface, to change it, to provide more relevant information. So as I step outside, the phone will provide me with different annotations, because then I would need different information. Okay, and this is the basis of context awareness and adaptation. This is not something new. Okay, the idea has been around since the 70s maybe. Now it's more important for mobile phones, but fine. So it is important also for virtual annotations. And now we know that actually it is very easy to implement this. It is very easy to have context awareness and adaptation on smartphones. It is very, very easy to do it for this type of applications. And now I'll tell you the secret. All we have to do is do this. Hook ourselves up to just a few sensors. So, okay, we're not there yet. which requires a lot of information, and we still don't know how to process this information. But it is the key to providing this relevant information to tourists. Because then we will know, if you're standing on Westminster Bridge in London looking towards the London Eye, whether you want in that situation maybe information about what the London Eye is, how high it is. Maybe you would want just an idea of how it looked like 20 years ago, and hey, no big surprise, it was the same. Or maybe you just want something more special. Maybe we just need to give you a bit of an edge with this virtual fireworks. Or maybe you're just tired and you just want to be directed towards the nearest pub. But most importantly, maybe, just maybe, for this situation, you don't want anything. You just want the world to stay like it is. So you don't need, at the end, this digital detox that we're all talking about. Okay, so yeah, context-aware augmented reality is something that we're looking at, something that we're trying to achieve. And we think that it is important as well for all stakeholders in tourism because, yeah, there's a huge market out there, as we have already said. And it is ultimately the experience from the destination that matters. Barbara mentioned earlier that technologies are already changing this experience. Like it or not, technology is here to stay. It has an effect of this experience. And in order to change it, in order to shape it, we need to understand how these technologies are changing this experience. So learning about such emerging technologies is not only fun and cool and awesome, it is a guarantee that we have a saying in this future and how technology changes the tourist experience. So we are very, very thankful that you took the time to learn about this today and be with us and understand how technology will shape this experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zori. Questions for Zori?
Or comments?
Yep. Just say who you are, where you come from, what's your perfume.
Hello, yeah, Lee Stevenson from Tourist Network, Ode the Man. My question's really about the bottom line, and all these technologies are quite exciting and cutting edge. Does anyone know, like, A, how many noughts you could expect to pay for these sort of features, and also if anyone's knows about the impact that they're actually having on visitor numbers? You know, is it actually inspiring more people to come to these attractions, to stay at the hotels, that sort of thing?
Yeah, thank you for this question, for these two questions. So I'm not sure whether there is official, actually, okay, augmented reality is something that is changing really fast now. There are constantly conferences, events, there are constantly new applications that are coming out. And I have been unable to find a document with statistics about how many people are currently using it, how many are expected to use it in the future. One market research company actually released such a report 2 years ago, and it was only expected downloads and expected number of applications as far as I remember. And the thing is that, you know, okay, we look at the experience with augmented reality, but not many people are doing this. Not many people actually, and if you think about it, it is a bit difficult to actually do empirical studies that try to understand the experience before using the technology and afterwards. Yeah, Barbara is now trying to do this overall, but I haven't seen such reports. It would be really interesting to find out. What I have seen though is many positive comments on both Google Play and on the iPhone market for augmented reality applications. I saw this myself in the experiment that I did. When you, even though tourists, they see for the first time an application like this, I show them, okay, so now this is it, this is what it does. I show them, and the first reaction is always, wow, this is amazing. I didn't know that we could do this. And then they start working with it and they realize that, okay, there are specific problems, but the reactions are very positive so far. I think that companies now rely actually on this effect. So no, there isn't a statistic but as far as I have observed from comments online and from the experiments, which is not enough, I understand, but the effect is really, the perception is really big. There are, just one final thing, there are 3 studies that looked at early adopters of augmented reality, and they did an online survey, okay? And they asked people, they asked people about your question as well. So what are your experiences? Would you use, for what would you use them? And I think you will find them useful. So I'll, if you have, if you want to, I can send them over afterwards. Yeah.
Very difficult questions, no answers. I think Zori did fantastically well. In all my career, and I've been in this business for 25 years, I take 2 things for granted. The technology is going to sort out itself, and everything is possible technologically. One. And the second thing is that everything that's technological is becoming affordable. So it's only a matter of time. If I was telling you 20 years ago that you'll have a mobile number, you'll have a number, telephone number, that's going to follow you around the globe, and it's going to be constantly available to you, you'll say, how much would that cost? Who is going to do it? And now we call it mobile phones, and we're carrying a couple of them in our pockets. Number one. Number two, similar things on social networking. If I was telling you that you're not going to buy newspapers and you're going to put all the information about what you do, pictures and all the rest of it, on somewhere for everybody to see forever, you'll say, no, this is crazy. Today we call it Facebook or Twitter. So what's happening is that we are moving through a transformation and re-engineering of the society and everything we do with this. And I think what's going to happen, and you're right on this, is that there'll be new business models that will be emerging. And the other thing that's very interesting is that the younger generations are interacting very, very different ways that we do. Who has picked up a brochure from a tour or from a travel agency recently? Has anybody picked up a brochure in the last year?
I picked a couple.
Every time Zori comes to my office, he brings papers. He loves paper. Who bought a newspaper in the last week? You know, there are a lot of... Who is watching 3 hours of television per day? Someone was telling me that you are? Sad person. But you're multitasking because you're always on 2 or 3 things. So you're not actually watching. You've got that as a background on the. Is it? Okay. Well, the question is, what's happening currently is that a lot of people are watching television, but actually they are watching it on YouTube or they are watching it online. Or, you know, there's a lot of different things that are happening. So back to your thing, business models are going to emerge to follow the demand. And what we're trying to do here, we're trying to do 2 things. Trying to understand the user requirements, what people really want and how they want, and then going back to the engineers and tell them how to develop it. So we're the interface in the middle that brings those communities together for a vertical industry, which is travel, tourism, hospitality, and everything that's away from home and everything that's away from work.
I think that the main factor for now for businesses is, these are very important questions that you ask, but I think for now businesses rely on this huge wow factor, this novelty that augmented reality has. And I just remember that I've seen another piece of statistics study that said that, okay, that was talking about the success of marketing campaigns and how huge, this is why we have so many augmented reality marketing campaigns, because people find it something new, something to be surprised of. Yeah, so, but yeah, no statistics so far.
Okay, I think I'm dying for a beer, so it's about time that I'm going to bring it to a close. Thank you very much, Zori. Thank you very much to all the presenters. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you'll be able to join us at the Slag and Lettuce in the square, so we can concentrate and have drink something to eat and continue the discussion. Please engage with us with the conversation, the research that we're doing. Now you know what my guys are doing and each of them, and hope that we're going to be able to collaborate more in the future. Thank you very, very much.